Good morning, everyone. This is Erica Diaz. I'm going to give just a couple of minutes because it looks like we're waiting for just a few more people. So I'm going to get started right around 10:02. Feel free to multitask us until then. If you have a moment, though, I would love to make sure that our chat box is working. So jump in, say hello in the question box so I can respond to you in the next couple of minutes just to make sure you know where our Q&A will be managed. So jump on in there. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I received now three Q&As. Jump on into the question box and say hello, or you can say anything you'd like, and I'll respond to you just so we know that Q&A box is working and you know where to ask your questions. Okay, it's 10:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions throughout, feel free to ask them. Just note, I may not pause in between. We have a Q&A section at the end. If I can find a natural break, I'll stop and answer those questions if I see them. Don't be offended if I don't. If I'm on a roll, we will have an opportunity to answer all of your questions at the end. Hopefully, we'll answer most of your questions about the committee throughout the presentations. If not, there will definitely be time. So moving right into our presentation, this is the committee kickoff for 2017. We're thrilled to have you with us, and we're grateful for the time that you've spent already in preparing yourselves and letting us know that you're interested. Let me introduce myself as well as Cynthia Lay. We are your committee resources. All of our contact information is here. For those of you who are just actively taking notes, you can relax, sit back and enjoy. You will be receiving a recording of this webinar so that you can watch it as many times as you like. You, of course, have our contact information as well in your Outlook directory. I'd like to introduce your 2017 Foundation Grant Committee. We do have an expanded committee this year, and that's with intention. You can see that the Sacramento region has 12 committee members, Sonoma with 4, Amador with 4, and then Lynn will be continuing to join us in a regional capacity. The reason that we have such a much larger committee is to allow for a greater sense of engagement with the individual applicants. Each committee member will be assigned an entity that has applied to go out and do a one-on-one visit to make sure that the workload isn't too extreme and that you have a chance to really connect and get to know the organizations. We expanded the committee so that the ratio is a little more appropriate. We certainly invite others at this juncture to engage. So if you have colleagues who want to participate, they're welcome to do so. Of course, they need to seek manager approval and get us that information, but certainly we're not too far into it. They can watch the webinar and get themselves trained up before the applications are available within the next week. So if you find this is so exciting and you want to invite additional colleagues to join, please don't feel that it's too late to do so. Everyone on this list, I'd just like to extend my personal thanks to you. So grateful for the time you're going to commit to evaluating these organizations. They've really poured their heart and soul into their applications, so your time is truly appreciated. Let's go over our agenda for today. First, we're just going to talk a little bit about the bank and what the foundation applicants have received as far as information about our organization. This is information that you can use when you visit their organization, so we're not only talking about that from an application process, but this will be a resource for you when you're out in their offices and needing to talk about the bank. We'll share where you can find all the foundation resources online, go through the dates for our 2017 cycle, discuss eligibility and application best practices, as well as tips that you should consider when you're reviewing the application. We'll then go through next steps and have an opportunity for Q&A. As you know, this is the footprint that we serve. All of the applicants have been given this information. Their organization, as you'll see in the eligibility criteria, must fall within this footprint. If this comes up or if you find an organization that is not within this area, you can refer back to this. Additionally, they've been given this information about what makes us different. These are our brand assets, and they're things that you should be familiar with when you go out to meet with them one-on-one. I won't read through each one of these. Hopefully they're somewhat familiar to you, but always a great review before you meet with your individual organizations, and something to just brush up on so that if questions come up, know that they've received this. It's been provided to them in 3 webinars like this one, as well as in a recorded session. We shared a little bit with them about our historical timeline and the history of the bank. They know that this is our headquarter office, and they've been invited to come out and visit us at any time. Should one of the organizations ask for that opportunity, you can direct them to me, or you can manage that meeting appointment yourself. However, it works best for you. We're moving into the foundation resources, and where you can find links to all of the information we'll cover today, but they live on our website here at americanriverbank.com/foundation. You'll see these hot links down below: eligibility and restrictions, schedule, selection criteria, the past grant recipients, the board of directors, and the employee committee. Let's talk a little bit now about the foundation. The foundation charter gives us our marching orders. It helps us understand what the purpose of the foundation is and gives us really our guiding principles around how those funds should be distributed. The foundation is committed to supporting organizations that do these things: create opportunity, enhance self-esteem, and provide physical and emotional well-being for the most vulnerable women and children. One question we received frequently on our webinar series was, do they need to do all 3, or can they do one of these elements? It was never indicated that they should do all 3, so an organization serving one piece, one capacity within this, perfectly fine. Since 2004, the foundation has donated over $983,000 to 52 different organizations. And this year, we anticipate that this committee will have the honor of dispersing funds that will take us over the $1 million mark. That's quite an accomplishment for an organization of our size, and being rated 10th in corporate philanthropy last year within our region, with organizations of much greater size and scope than our own, is something we all need to be very proud of. And it's because of the hard work of this committee and everyone inside the organization that we're able to do this. We know that 100% of donations go right back to community organizations because of your support. Let's go through some of these important dates that are coming up. As you know, applications were due on the 6th, and we've been processing those. In fact, we're still working through them. We have a slightly larger number of applicants than we've had before. And because we're reviewing applications electronically, we've allowed them to provide some additional submissions. So we're working on getting those into a live environment for you to review. They're not yet there, but they will be. Of course, today we're doing our first committee meeting and our kickoff, and you'll be scoring your applications over the next couple of weeks. Committee scorecards will be due on Friday, November 3rd, and then we will be requesting financial information from the top scoring organizations. I'll be out with all of you in each region. So in Amador, we'll review the Amador scorecards. In Sacramento, the Sacramento scorecards. Sonoma, the Sonoma scorecards, in those individual meetings you see listed there. You then will be given the opportunity to go out and visit those top applicant locations that we determine need a one-on-one visit. We'll select those assignments in each region and work with you to serve your needs and have it be the way you'd like it to be. This is committee driven. And on the 13th, we will be asking for your notes that we'll compile for the foundation board meeting. On the 20th, you'll need to be present at our board meeting here in Sacramento. And on the 31st, we will notify the organizations who have been awarded funds that those decisions have been made. It's their New Year's Eve present. We will be doing our fund disbursement, actually giving out the checks from January to April at our community giving events in 2018. And it is important to note that there will be a fund usage report due from all grant applicants, letting us know that they've been utilizing the funds or have plans to utilize the funds that they received. I'm going to review all of the eligibility requirements just so that you know what the guidelines are for someone to be eligible, and then the selection criteria that you should be using when you're scoring your applicants. As far as eligibility, we award grants to strengthen the capacity of local community-based 501c3 nonprofits. They need to be conducting charitable work to benefit the unique issues affecting women and children, and they need to be within Sacramento, Sonoma, South Placer, or Amador counties. They can ask for monies to fund their general operations if the organizational annual budget is less than $1 million, or for a specific program relating to women and children. If they've received a grant in the past, they are still eligible to reapply. They need to meet the following criteria. They have to have their 501c3 tax-exempt status that they can document for us. We covered their geographic footprint. They have to have a governing board of directors and an executive director who's responsible for day-to-day management. Their executive office and principal place of business need to be within our stated geographic area. We covered that geographic area at the very first slide in this presentation. They need to be in good financial standing. That's something that will be evaluated during their financial review, and have administrative expenditures not exceeding 20% of their total budget. Reapplication must be accompanied by their fund usage report for a prior grant award. Many times you'll see that they may have submitted their fund usage report that says, we haven't used the funds yet, but we plan to. If that's the case, we have an expectation that they will update their fund usage report to indicate they used the funds, or whatever the current status is, so that we have the most current information. The foundation funds organizations and programs that seek to address the critical needs of the most vulnerable women and children. Now, one of the things that's interesting to note is that when I started here about a year ago, there was a cultural expectation that if decisions had to be made, the committee would select first those organizations that provided food and shelter primarily. However, when we went back and reviewed the charter of the organization and had a discussion with the board, it was actually determined that we were missing a couple of the pillars that had been intended to be addressed by the foundation. So there are actually 4 areas that the foundation board has given us an indication that they'd like us to serve, and that is food, shelter, education, and safety. You'll see that the scorecard this year, for those of you who are returning from a prior year participation, has been updated to reflect an opportunity to share which one of these areas the organization is serving primarily. Well, the foundation board has been crystal clear about the fact that they want the committee to make their recommendations. They feel incredibly strongly that this disbursement needs to be employee-driven and employee-directed. They did give us the guidance that if the committee is looking for guidance from the board, they would suggest that we try to balance it across these 4 areas, not lean heavily toward just food and shelter or heavily toward education and safety, but if possible, balance across all 4 sectors, given that was the initial scope of the foundation within its initial charter. There are a couple of areas that we do not fund. Those are listed here. You can certainly go through those at a later time. If you have questions about any of those, they seem pretty intuitive to me, but if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. In the grant proposal, we have suggested and given guidance to all of the organizations applying that they not only touch our hearts with compelling stories, but recognize that we're bankers and that we're looking for solid facts that significantly show the impact that they're making in our communities. If you find that your application is missing those solid facts, it's definitely something that will reflect in your scoring, because we want to let those who are donating through the foundation know that we're really measuring the impact and can show the results from the organizations that we're supporting with our funds. Let's talk a little bit about best practices for applications. This year, we revised the application so that our narrative questions align with the selection criteria. So each one of these questions you'll see have a companion selection criteria. We asked them what their main challenge was and asked them to clearly tie that to our foundation mission, as well as specifically describe their organization and their specific objectives. In the second narrative question, we asked how they impact our community, and we asked them again to talk about specifics on how they contribute to and impact our community, and also describe what other organizations are addressing the issue and if they collaborate. These questions are those that are on your scorecard. We're going to go through the scorecard when we talk about next steps. So they've been given this information and asked the questions in a way that should directly line up with the way that you're scoring them. Question number 3 is how do they define success, telling us how they measure success at the organization with specific goals, numbers, statistics, stories, and explaining other sources of funding that they seek. If they do not answer these questions, just know that they've been given the opportunity to participate in the webinars, of which about 60 did, and they've been provided that webinar in a YouTube environment for the last month. In addition, this information is in the application itself. And if they're not listening to the directions and not providing that information, that should be reflected in your scoring. The last piece of the application that we'll cover is the financial information. This is really addressing some of the frequently asked questions that we receive. On application page 1, it references budget. They almost always ask, was that actuals from the year prior from their financial statement? We're asking about their current fiscal year and the budget that they've been working within for this current fiscal year. If their administrative expenditures are greater than 20%, you know that that's one of the selection criteria that's important from an eligibility standpoint. We've asked them to explain if that's the case, if they think that there's a reason that perhaps this is a unique year or there is a reason that might still allow them to be eligible. Additionally, because this comes up often in our committee discussions, we've asked them that if their government funding percentage is very high or if it's changing or has fluctuated in the past, to give us that explanation. If they don't provide that, certainly those will be reflected in your scoring and likely the subject of lots of discussion when we meet in our in-person meetings to discuss the scores and how the organizations have been evaluated. Prior to the final determinations being made, the organizations are going to provide a lot of financial information. You don't ask for that. We actually have our amazing accounting team involved, and they have an ex officio role in the committee. They reach out to the organizations and ask for all of these documents to be provided, and then they evaluate those for us. We're so fortunate to have that thought leadership within this arena so that you can feel confident that the financial information that's been provided is being measured apples to apples, one organization to another, to address those financial criteria we talked about at the beginning. Here's what we shared with the applicants about what we found to be best practices that usually result in the top scoring organizations. Are they clear about their purpose? Do they engage with their community? Are they fiscally responsible? We just talked about that. Do they give us a clear description of their program service and activities? Really important, are they tied to our foundation purpose without creating new programs? Are they demonstrating sound planning and management? Really, we want organizations that have best practices in place. Again, we talk about not duplicating existing efforts. As well, we want them to seek other sources of funding. We're not interested in being what's called a lifeboat program, where if our funding were not available to them, they would no longer be able to service their community. They definitely need to quantify their grant impact, and we tried to give them as much guidance as possible because we found those score the highest when they can give us really clear evaluation. For example, X number of dollars per volunteer times the number of people served has this amount of impact. We like them to share their differences in the cost or return on investment with sister organizations. For example, we've had organizations that are exactly the same in 2 different counties, both apply for grants. In one county, they'll tell us that it's $40 to train a new volunteer, and in another, they'll tell us it's $100 to train a new volunteer. We need to understand those differences, and we've asked them to first talk with their sister organizations and very likely compare applications before they submit, because that, of course, draws questions about why it's so expensive in one area versus another. For prior recipients we've talked about, they need to quantify the impact that their grant funds have had. This year, this is a really important distinction. We've asked these organizations to set themselves apart. While our foundation is phenomenal in the great work that it allows these organizations to do in their communities, sorry, I'm trying to talk too fast. It's really important that as a bank that needs to grow, that we seek a true partnership and synergistic relationship with our nonprofit partners. Now, that doesn't mean that it's self-serving. In fact, the more we align and partner and collaborate with our nonprofits, the more likely that our employees are to give back to those nonprofits. Once they know them and actually can put a face with the name and understand the good work of the organization, the likelihood of giving will actually increase. People tend to be more magnanimous with those organizations that they know and the people that they trust than with those that they know nothing about. But it's really important that you note that we've added some criteria an evaluation to the survey this year, to our scoring card this year. And that's what we call setting an organization apart. We're looking for those organizations that have a relationship with local bank team members. Obviously, we really want to support those organizations that have reached out and made an attempt or worked diligently to create a relationship with our local bank team. Why? Because that means they can talk about us, and we have that true synergy going on. We want to support organizations that are interested in that collaborative relationship because we're a relationship bank. And the best way that we can have those organizations talking about us and referring us to new business is for them to know us. If an organization doesn't know anyone at our organization here, has not made any outreach to their local team members or participated in any of our events, that's something that will likely reflect in your scores. As far as our bank events, one of the things that we offer to our nonprofits is to participate in them as volunteers so that we do get to know them and understand their organization. If they've done that, that's something that you'll be scoring and evaluating. One of the things that you know is a requirement for the bank is that we offer financial literacy courses. It's a beautiful thing if we can not only support the organization with funds through the grant process, but also provide CRA value. It's great for the bank and it's great for their audiences. It provides them with a free resource and expertise within the banking arena and financial literacy programs. So those that have that, you'll be scoring. We've asked them to let us know if they can leverage our bank meeting spaces. As we all know, company-wide, foot traffic inside of our offices is not at an all-time high. More people are using online tools, but that doesn't mean that we're not still a relationship bank interested in making new connections. It's a great opportunity for those nonprofits who may not have a business space that they can utilize, a boardroom or community space, to have their volunteer trainings, their board meetings, their individual one-on-one meetings with new donors. It's great for us because it gives us the visibility, but it also allows us to support them by giving them space that they may not otherwise have. And finally, we've asked for them to provide their events for 2018, as well as the fees that are involved in that. Generally, what happens with your community engagement team is we receive requests about 4 to 1 week out from the event for additional funding, whether to support that event, and it's just incredibly problematic. Not only do we need to consider the funding and the budget, but we also have to try to find bank team members who are available to go. And all of you have received those requests, so you know how challenging that is within a short time frame. We're working in this to train our nonprofits to give us that information early and really see those as an opportunity to strategically engage with us. What that looks like for me is not having a table of 8 where we don't talk to other businesses, but rather the opposite, seating us alongside business leaders and community engagers that we can partner with, meet new contacts, and obviously prospect within the communities that they're serving. Let's talk about our next steps. So in October and up to the beginning of November, the employee committee, that's you, will be reviewing applications, and you'll be reviewing them only by region. We really want to keep your workload as targeted as necessary. So you'll be, the Sacramento team will be reviewing Sacramento applications and Amadors, and Sonomas. There's no reason for you to read all applications when you're making the decision for your region specifically. Once the top scoring organizations have been determined from the scorecard, we'll be sending those over to our accounting team. They'll be asking the organizations to submit their financial information. And then those top scoring organizations will be visited by the employee liaison who's selected that organization as their, for them to be their ambassador. Employees will then reconvene to make our final recommendations, and then the foundation board hears our final recommendations from you, so you advocate for the organizations that you're recommending, and ultimately the grant decisions are made. Grants are going to range between $2,500 and $15,000. This is a bit of a change as well. In the past, we've stated on our application that it would range between $5,000 and $15,000. And I've asterisked this here because I'm going to repeat myself, but it's worth repeating. The foundation board has asked that this committee really evaluate the appropriate amount to be dispersed to each organization. We've had a lot of dialogue around the fact that, again, culturally there was an understanding, and we're not quite sure where it came from, and I presented this to the foundation board, that we as an organization, had a desire to give fewer grants, but of larger sums of money. And the Foundation Board confirmed with no vague response that that was never their indication or expectation, that they want the committee to recommend the appropriate grant amount, and that we feel strongly about the recommendations that we make. There was a lot of discussion about the benefits of having more organizations familiar with American River Bank. So from a community engagement side, there's certainly a benefit to giving larger numbers of grants of smaller value. On the flip side, some organizations may deliver an application that really convicts you to recommend a larger amount. And that's where your leadership is going to be absolutely vital in helping to make those decisions. So there's no blanket statement to tell you keep them small or make them big. It really needs to be driven by the committee. It is important that we keep in mind the intent of the giving is also our community engagement and our brand strength within the markets that we serve. So there's an argument that can be made around the greater number of grants. That being said, we've got to balance that right hand in hand with the right amount for the right organization. If you have questions about that, we can certainly talk about that. Let's talk about your scorecard. This is what the top of your scorecard looks like. It's an extremely long spreadsheet. Sorry about that. I've just provided here the columns across the top. You'll be filling in the organization name, the program name. Well, we'll give you that. We'll give you the organization name. Then you'll be filling out the organization budget, program budget, percentage of government funding, percentage of admin, and amount requested. This previous recipient column is actually a hot link that takes you right to our website with the list of all the previous organizations. So you can see if they've been a recipient in the past. Additionally, I have a Excel spreadsheet I can send to everyone that lists all of the organizations and how often they've received it and what year. This last column is new. It has the green arrow underneath it, and it says the top area that this organization is addressed by the organization. So there's 4 categories that we talked about: food, which we'll put an F, shelter an S, education an E, and safety a Y. Don't worry, you don't have to tilt your head for this next section because our next slide goes over all of these. So these are the areas that you're scoring, and you score them from 1 to 10. Question 1, do they demonstrate a direct link to the foundation mission? Does the organization or program fund, are the funds used for critical needs? And we'll talk about that double asterisk in just a second. Do they demonstrate specific and measurable success criteria? Is the talk about and score the sustainability of the organization or the program, score their likelihood of success, and score their level of collaboration. Now we move into the new sections that have been added. Score their relationship with a local banker or bankers and/or their involvement with ARB events. Score the financial literacy opportunities that they've made available to us. Score whether they're able to leverage ARB meeting spaces, and score whether or not they've provided their strategic events as we've directed them to do. The total score with these 10 questions would be 100 max, and that's how we measure those top scoring organizations. I'll go back one slide and talk about these asterisks. So on the bottom, these asterisks indicate, again, what is our mission, and then what are those 4 areas of criteria. I did include as well, and you'll see this on the score sheet, the percentages of dollars per region. One of the things that's important to note is that the dollars that are raised go back into the organizations, the areas in which they were raised. So if the funds are raised in Amador, they go back to Amador. If they're raised in Sacramento, they go back to Sacramento. Let's move right now into questions. I'm sure that you have some. I'm going to open up the question box and start taking your questions. If you just type them in, I will read them for the group and answer them, hopefully benefiting everyone so that you can hear from your colleagues. And if you have a question, they likely do too. I'll give it just a minute when you jump into your questions. I can't possibly have covered all of your questions. I'm going to put you on mute and give you guys a second. Okay, we have a great question from Jennifer Heisler. Thanks, Jennifer. She asked, how many applications should we expect to review individually? That's a great question. We should probably, in the Sacramento region, have about 30 would be my guess. We've not compiled all of them yet. We're still working through it. We should have them ready and available in a live Dropbox for you on Friday. In fact, we've not talked about that, so it's a great segue I'm going to use. And again, that's why we have such a large number within the Sacramento region for our top scoring applicants, so that you don't have so many to visit one-on-one. This is going to be the first year, everyone, we're reviewing applications electronically. In the past, we've actually gone, I don't know where we went, Kinko's, and printed out hard copy binders of all of the applications, spiral bound. The cost was around $600 to do that. And I believe that in this digital age, we can attempt to do this in an electronic fashion so that you can have access to them, reviewing the applications and using your scorecard in a live environment. I know from last year that many of the people on the committee wanted to do this at home. So we've chosen a live environment that you can access from your home desktop computer, and we'll provide those links to you as soon as those file folders are available, so that you can go and look at them. We'll provide screenshots to walk you through it, and we're always available for technical support. We are using Dropbox, and so that's our platform we'll be utilizing. If you have any challenges with it, and if you end up to where you just absolutely cannot do it without a hard copy, we will make them on a case-by-case basis, but admittedly, we're going to work as diligently as we can to try to get you into a digital environment first, and something that works for you, even if we need to move it to a different platform or a different methodology, because we'd like to save that expense of creating the hard copy books. Instead, we'd like those dollars to go back to the foundation recipient. We will be sending out this deck, and we have recorded it. So great question. I appreciate, for those of you who may have missed part of this, it is recorded. It'll be available on YouTube, and you can watch it at your leisure. When will we know the amounts that the different areas that have contributed? So David has given me an indication that Mitch has a good sense of the percentages. I'll be asking for that from him. Just know that we do have a little bit of fluctuation, but it should give us a general idea. And the breakdown and split by region have been pretty much the same, not a huge amount of a shift in how they break down from region to region. We don't need that information until we get a little closer, so into November, allowing for additional fundraising to happen. So don't worry about that too much yet, but we will know certainly in November where we're at. And then as we move into December, oftentimes the foundation board members, some of the larger contributions come at that time, but those are projected. So we'll have those, a really good guess of those in November. Of course, the final numbers aren't available to us until, I guess, officially December 31st. Someone could walk in the door and drop off a check, but we know that's pretty unlikely. So we'll have good projections in November, and then our final later into the month in December. Yes, it will be available in printable form, and it will also be available via video. So I can send this deck to you as soon as this is done. Out of the 30 that we're reviewing, how many will we need to go and visit? Great question. Thank you, Colette. So we visit the top scoring organizations. So here's how it works. You guys do your scorecards. We put them all together. And then when we meet in our in-person meetings, we have a big hash it out discussion. And we talk about why we scored what we scored accordingly, and make the decision about which ones make the cut for an in-person visit. And there's a tremendous amount of discussion. So I can't tell you because you have not yet determined it, but your committee will determine who those organizations are that get a one-on-one visit. We'll look at all of the scores, identify, is there kind of a clear high and low, is there a clear high, middle, and low, and then have that dialogue to determine which ones, and if we broke it up into the number in each one of those categories that we would need to do for an in-person visit. It's also at that time that employees can make a commitment of how many they'll visit. We've had some employees commit to visit 3 or 4 organizations, and others say, my workload at this time only allows me to visit 1, or sometimes they can't necessarily do the in-person visit, and another employee might do that for them. That's the purpose of those in-person meetings, and much of what we'll discuss and what will be on the agenda when we come together. So we won't know exactly until your committee makes those determinations of who they're going to go see. And will we be doing more than 1 on-site visit, or is it 1 per committee member? So we try to get close to a 1-on-1, 1-to-1 ratio, but we just don't have that level of participation for applicants. Now, based on prior years, we're pretty close. If we had the same number of top scoring, we're pretty close to a 1-on-1 in each region, which is really, that was our ideal and that was our goal. We worked pretty hard to get that number up to where we felt it was more feasible. I know I did 3 visits myself last year and found it to be a lot of time. Of course, I love doing it. I think we all find it incredibly valuable. So it's certainly not a negative in any way, but we just want to be mindful of your other duties. Any other questions? So great questions, everybody. I so appreciate all of what you've asked. Everyone that's engaged, I'm just so grateful to all of you. I see so many names on here that I'm just so looking forward to working with all of you. You're such tremendous bankers with heart, and it makes me proud to be part of such a phenomenal organization. This, of course, is not the last opportunity for you to ask questions. You know, hopefully, and if you don't, let me tell you, I'm available to you at any time. This is not only an honor, but also a privilege for me to work on, and I'm here to serve you, provide you resources, advice, suggestions, insight, really anything that you need to help you be the best committee member that you can be. You are the leaders and directors of this program, and that is as the Foundation Board has directed it. And they really want it to stem from your leadership and your review of the applications, directing where these funds will go. If there are any other questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Right now, I'm going to give you the gift of time. I aimed for, let's see. I got one more question. I'm so sorry. How many committee members are looking at one of the applications? Is it just 1 or more? So all, for example, all Sonoma applications are going to be reviewed and scored by all Sonoma members. So the 4 Sonoma committee members will review all of the applications within Sonoma County. Similarly, in Amador, the 4 Amador committee members will read, review, and score all of the Amador applications. So you'll review everything within that region. But that, for Sacramento alone, that will cut reading time or quantity of applications in half. Because with about 60 applicants last year, about half of those were in the Sacramento region. So instead of reading 60, our Sacramento team will be reading 30. It should significantly reduce your reading time. Who is on the Foundation Board? A great question. So Wayne, actually the list of the board members is hot linked in this presentation. And on that, you can visit the AmericanRiverBank.com/foundation and click on that to go right to the Foundation Board list. And that'll show you everyone who's on the board. And that does have participation from our executive team, as well as business leaders who are on the Foundation Board. I encourage you to become familiar with that, especially because you'll be presenting to those individuals here in Sacramento. We'll be giving you guidance around that, an agenda, time frame, specific guidelines about what to cover. We'll cover all of that at a later date because it's difficult to determine that now. All of that depends on how many people we're recommending, which you all will be determining. I don't see any other questions coming in, but I'm so grateful again to all of you for your time. I know you have many important things to get to today. We aimed for about 40 minutes, and it looks like we're not too far away from that. Please don't hesitate to send additional questions. We'll send the link to the recorded presentation on YouTube. It does take us a bit. We get the file and have to upload it, but we'll send out the deck so you have that right away. And again, don't hesitate to email or call at any time. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I enjoy working with all of you.